Hello, my name is Danita, and I'm really excited that today I have a chance to really have a conversation with some of my good friends, Christy and Darren, otherwise known as the owners of Cornerstone Creatives. So I've known them for, wow, it's probably coming on, 4 years now, and have really gotten to watch their business flourish and to see them kind of grow as people and grow as business managers and entrepreneurs. So it's great to have some conversation. I know that you all are probably curious about their journey and really how they make things work as business partners and as a married couple, as they have a fast-paced, growing business. So I'm just going to ask some questions and have a good conversation. And very happy that you can join us for this journey.
Whoop, whoop. Actually, Gina, it's been 5 years. We met in 2020.
Oh, it was 2020, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Say 2020 has been so long she lost count. Yeah, it's cool to, finally sit down and do what we've been delaying for a long time. Um, and yeah, we've also not just known each other, but we've worked in the same space together. We've really grown together in Barbados, both of us coming from the States. And so that journey we've shared has really been a unique one, being able to support one another, go to the same church, have similar work habits and friends as well. So it's exciting to finally start. So, yeah. It's
It
a
is. And so, one thing I have to mention for our audience that I've observed with Chrissy and Darren. So I consider them to be very naturally entrepreneurial. It's very obvious that they have an entrepreneurial spirit and they're go-getters and really like clear-eyed about their targets. I, on the other hand, I've been on an entrepreneurship journey since, let's say, late 2022. And I don't actually consider myself naturally an entrepreneur. In some ways, I feel like I've been pulled into this by God. It's kind of a longer story. So I too, when I observe Chrissy and Darren, have my own questions about their alignment, how they're able to make things work in entrepreneurship, and what's driving them. So I did want to start the conversation, Chrissy, just really asking you about first of all, do you consider yourself to be ambitious, and what does ambition
mm.
look like to you?
Yeah, you dropped the big question first. Yeah, I absolutely do consider myself to be ambitious. From a very young age, I've always felt that about myself. I think because, where I grew up in Brooklyn, there wasn't a lot of ambitious people around me. And so every day I would look out the window and I would always say to myself, I'm going to be so much better than this. And that really drove me to think, hey, life can be how you make it. And from young, I've always had that mindset as, well, if I can do anything I want to do, what's stopping others from doing the things they want to do? And so when people would tell me, hey, you can't do that, or that's not possible for you to do, I would just say, like, why? Like, what's the reason why? Like, give me a really good reason. And people don't have answers for that. Why can't I go to school here? Or why can't I buy clothes from this store? And so I've always believed that like anything is truly possible because it starts as an idea and then it births. And that's what all things are made of. Like everything here has been created, right, by something, someone. So ambition has been running through my veins as long as I could remember. It's from a little kid up until now. And as I was sharing earlier too, that it just starts to become a greater challenge as you get older. The things you're ambitious about becomes bigger and you want more of a challenge because you've always been on that path of being ambitious.
Yeah, I really appreciate how you shared that. And I think it illustrates how everyone is oriented a little differently. So for you, the world is your oyster, and it's really up to you to just put the steps forward and to reach to grab. Whereas there's other people who are more fear oriented and are really seeing limitations. It's real, the limitations are the biggest thing in their vision. I have someone who has had to really put effort into shifting my mentality, not to consider so much limitation and fear, but hey, everything is possible. So I will say that, Chrissy has inspired me. You have inspired me to can be more open-hearted and just what would the word be? Just having, open hands and just be okay with asking. So Chrissy, she kind of cracks me up because she doesn't really believe in the word no. And she will just ask. She will ask anybody anything if she wants it, which is always
Oh my
it is really,
gosh.
really funny to me sometimes. But I think there's something to be learned from that. So that's been something that has inspired me. And it's helped me just to be like, hey, you really have nothing to lose most of the time when you just ask a question.
That's so funny. I think my family would say the same growing up with me. They knew for me, I was just that young kid that was so curious, but also did not like hearing no. My family would say, "Oh yeah, I was spoiled growing up and I got everything I wanted." So the moment I heard no, it was like, "Are you kidding me? What do you mean?" And find the ways to get what I wanted. And I think that's where it stemmed from, according to what they said, right? That I got everything that I've asked for, and then there would be moments where I couldn't get it, and I would just make it happen because I desired it that much. And even like my life with traveling or building again a life that I wanted, I was not going to take no for an answer. I was going to make sure whatever I did, I was going to build that lifestyle. And so I did. And, it just goes to show like when you really, really, really want something, it can happen. You have to have that strong why and that strong desire in you. Um, and once you hear that no, it breaks you inside. And so when you're feeling that brokenness, you're like, oh no, this can't be true. I'm devastated. I'm gonna find another way. And so I think, that is really what helps to continue asking
Yeah.
because it happens. You can really get what you want. I mean, that's not good advice for kids, but you can make it happen, I should say.
Okay, so what does success look like for you?
Success. It means so many different things depending on the context and all of that. Let's see. When I was younger, success, again, right? Growing up in the neighborhood I grew up in, and I used to always think about success as having a lot of money, which a lot of people still associate that with success. And having a lot of money, buying the things you can buy, not even looking at a price tag, just having that type of that bossness, that control in your money. But then as time went on and I actually started to make money and I actually started to, you know, I grew in my wisdom and I grew in my family, I realized that time was probably the most important thing for me. And so, although I started working really hard and I spent a lot of time building the business, I wanted to make sure that I always had time to do the things I actually wanted to do. Like, wanting to do as in like my hobbies. Like, I loved cooking. I want to be able to spend 3 hours in the morning cooking because I can, right? If I wanted to spend a whole month with my family, I wanted to be able to do that. And so success is really about being able to own your time and use it the way you want to use it. Everybody tends to have different outlooks. Growing up in the States, they always say, time is money, right? And you always think about, well, if I worked 40 hours in a day, that's not impossible, but if I work this hard, I can become even more successful than a person who works 5 hours. And the more time you spend working, the more successful you become. And that's really such a lie because you can become successful without having to spend all your time grinding, losing your family, losing your mental health. It's it's not really a successful way to be successful.
Yes, so these are all great points, and I think it's interesting that you talk like this, and certainly it's not anything new. I mean, we all have different values. Some people
Mhm.
really value a time spent with loved ones and their hobbies and just space for themselves. There's other people who just love, love, love to work, and that's valid
Yeah.
too. But I do think it's interesting to talk like this in our current realities where there's a lot of fear in the atmosphere. You know, so many different nations of the earth, like everywhere, people are concerned about making a living and whether they're going to have a job tomorrow, and just the idea that um, money and everything, there's like this scarcity mentality. So people are feeling like they need to have a tight grip on
Mm.
whatever they can for financial security. So, I really hear this. You have a confidence and a peace that you can make things happen regardless of kind of the general circumstances, the general environments we're
Mhm.
in. So where do you get that confidence that you can still kind of have what you want and do what you want and see the fruit of it regardless of like the general realities of the world?
Tanita, you have such great questions. Where do you come up with these things? Oh my goodness. Where have I gained this confidence? Where does it come from? I feel like New Yorkers have just very high confidence in general. Like they're born with it.
I think that's really true,
Yeah.
actually.
They are just born out the womb having this ultimate confidence. Um, and like I always go back to like my childhood because, when you are going to school and you're from Brooklyn or you're from Queens, wherever you're from in New York City, right? People are always hip. People are always cool. People are always having the latest styles and um want to be popular or seen as like, hey, they're cool. And so you don't go into school looking crazy and you don't go into school looking scared. You always have confidence on. You wear confidence every day
Mm.
because you will get beat up
Yeah, that's
or you
good.
get picked at.
That's real.
And you don't walk through those doors looking like a lame-o for multiple reasons, right? And you got to really own it. You got to be confident in yourself that nobody will dare to touch you or dare to say anything rude to you. And I think that's the thing about growing up in Brooklyn and in public school. Like people are not afraid to beat you up. People are not afraid to pick on you. They're not afraid to take the Jordans out your feet. Like this is real stuff. So if you coming in every day looking shy and scared, things are going to happen. So I learned early I had to be confident
Mhm.
everything I do, walk, talk, and act. And that's probably where it came from a young age living and growing up in Brooklyn.
And I want to tell the audience, we're not saying that Chrissy is going to beat you up. This is not the message to take away from this podcast.
Yeah, I've come a long way from that. Yeah, that's how it started. And then I think like just now, like being an adult, I really value I think I really value myself and also like how I look every day too, right? So how I dress, how I appear to people is really important to me and how people just see me for the first time as well. And so I take that into consideration. And so when I look good, I feel good. And that really helps to build my confidence, like a lot of people. And then once I do that on a daily basis, that just becomes routine, becomes habit. I would also say that, um, like, I don't know what I was going to say for that last one. I would also say that I spent a lot of my high school time as well in the fashion world. And being in the fashion industry has helped with always thinking about how you look, how you approach people, and what people think of you. So that also was, kind of helped shape me. So yeah, I would say a lot of the childhood stuff,
Mhm.
going into high school, then going into college, and experiences as well. So even like traveling, when I would travel to all these different countries in Asia or even just countries in Europe, I always felt like, being an American was a privilege. And so I'd walk into these countries and places because we got the best jobs, we got the highest pay. That helped boost confidence, knowing who I was as an American living in America back then. and there. That really helped. Like I would just be like, oh yeah, I'm from the States. I live in the States. And that really helped to boost
Mhm.
confidence.
Yeah, that's all very interesting, and I consider that, your upbringing in New York, really the
Hmm.
idea of identity formation, being that you feel like you were forced to really create a strong identity for yourself from young
Yeah.
because you had to show up and you had to not be competitive necessarily, but you're in a social environment where you needed to really represent yourself really definitively.
Hmm.
So I can see how that would translate as you get older. And certainly, so I grew up in upstate New York, so not the same. I was closer to
Right.
Canada. We were far more laid back
Yes.
than New
Yes.
Yorkers. I mean, I remember a friend of yours said that we had a upstate New Yorkers have a hall pass to New York. I remember him saying that, and it's
Oh
kind
my
of true.
gosh. Yes, you have to really clarify. You're from New York, not New
Yes.
York
Right.
City.
And a lot of people don't even understand that there's like a different part of New York State.
Totally
But
different
it
culture.
was far different from me, for me. We're yeah, Syracuse where I grew up was a lot more laid back. People were able to find their niche and their people without much friction, honestly.
You're lucky.
Yeah, it really
Dang,
was
girl, you had a
like
good childhood.
yeah, it was actually kind of ideal in that way where I was able just to be this nerdy girl and I had like a diverse group of friends and diverse interests. But I didn't
Wow.
dress nearly as cute as Chrissy did. You should see like her her
You're so
school
lucky,
outfits.
man. Nobody jumped you, man.
No,
Oh
like
my
we're cool.
goodness.
Everybody was cool. I was in band. I was in the choir. I was smart. I had
Oh my god. You
a lot of
see,
other friends like that.
no, they didn't like the
Nobody
nerdy
was
kids.
stealing my non-existent Jordans.
Oh
So
my,
yeah.
I had everything stolen. People used to steal my cell phone out my pocket, bro.
Wow.
Oh my god, let me tell you, we're not even gonna start. My own friends used to steal my iPod
Mhm.
back in the days. I was
Wow,
like,
wow, wow.
yo,
That's crazy.
crazy, right? I let them borrow it and then they stole
Oh
it.
my goodness.
You mad balls.
Wow. See, this is why Christy, she's got this very happy, cute exterior, but she's got a heart of stone over here.
I just don't play no games. All right. I think my
Yeah.
husband will tell you all of that.
Right. So
Poor guy.
speaking of your husband, Darren, so we've heard a lot about Chrissy and um where her like values come from, her ambition and everything. And so I would love to hear how Darren, what his values are when it comes to ambition and how it kind of aligns with yours since you all are not only married but business partners. So I would love to know what he thinks about ambition and um success. So Darren, what does success look like for you?
Mm, okay, that's a very good question because that's something I think about quite often. Um, Similar to Chrissy, success for me growing up was the idea of building, this big house and creating this legacy of material things, right? Creating this legacy of lots of money in the bank and um, owning this fancy car and big boat and all these fancy things, right? But I different than apart from Chrissy, my idea of success was a little bit different because I came up in a very rough environment, so I didn't have the people to look up to that were successful, right? I didn't see people who had all this success. For me, the idea was of that success was kind of a myth, right? I would see it on TV and stuff like that, but not having someone that I can physically see have that success was a myth to me, right? So, um, but growing up later on in life, I would say probably around the age of 14, 15, I started to realize that success was not something tangible. That for me, success was more about purpose, right? What I do with my life and how I affect the lives of others. That's the idea of success. That's what I live with now as success. So, how I can change someone else's life, right? To me, that's success. To see someone being able to do the things that they want to do with their lives, right? With, uh, if they're with something that I have done for them, that's success to me. So, like, say I have a friend who's interested in photography, right? But they don't necessarily have a camera. or they don't even know how to use a camera, or don't know how to take photography. If I could teach them how to do that, and they turn around and go out there and create business for themselves and create their legacy for themselves, that's my level of success.
Okay. No, that's really great. And I really like what you had to say about kind of recognizing relatively early that success for you
Mm-hmm.
was about adding value and the change that you can help other people make
Mm-hmm.
or that you can make in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So, as Cornerstone Creatives has grown,
Mm-hmm.
um, do you think that you are being successful now? Or do you think you are contributing positive things to others' lives?
I do believe so, in several ways. With several ways actually. I do believe one of the main ways that we contribute to helping others in my idea of success is through our work, right? Our work is a means of helping others to grow their businesses and grow their legacy. So um, it's just a byproduct of what we do, right? We see if we provide someone with great content that can tell their story, right? I believe that that helps them to gain traction into creating their legacy, right? That's one way. And then another way is, by training other individuals in our business, right? So, we work a lot with the deaf community as well.
Mhm.
So, like training people like Scott, which is one of our deaf members of Deaf House, which is Cornerstone Creatives and Deaf House go hand in hand. Um, by doing that, that allows other people to be a little more successful in their own way as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's fantastic.
Thank you.
And I've also gotten to see them evolve a deaf house, and they really started from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
They were people who were not really aware of the deaf community before they decided to embark on this journey to help the deaf community. They saw a need and decided to fill a gap. So I really admire Chrissy and Darren's work with the deaf community and how they immersed themselves and took sign language ASL classes for a year and
Mm-hmm.
really develop deep relationships with the deaf community, especially in a region in the Caribbean where a lot of the services and societal integration has been hard for them just due to lack of accessibility in general,
Mm-hmm.
in different parts of society. So that's been very, very cool to see
Mm-hmm.
and very admirable and inspiring to see as Deaf House continues to grow. So
Mm-hmm.
as you and Chrissy work together
Mm-hmm.
as like a married couple, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously Chrissy has a strong personality and kind of strong vision for where she wants to see
Strong.
things.
I think you should. Well, there has to be a word better than that to describe Christy. Strong. We'll go with strong.
Strong vision for where
Mm-hmm.
she wants to see things go.
Mm-hmm.
So, how would you describe your working dynamic? Do you feel
Mm-hmm.
like your ambition kind of matches hers? Do you feel like you're balancing each other out in some way?
It's a good question. Very good question. I think initially when we first started working together, right? I think that it was challenging because Christy's ambition is New York ambition, right? Christy's ambition is like, yo, we got to get this done by yesterday morning. Like it needs to be done and it needs to be done right. And my ambition was like, okay, cool. It will be done, like it's important. It needs to be done, but we could take our time with this and we can make sure that we do it, but it doesn't have to be like finished like right now,
Mhm.
right? So that was a
So
challenge.
yours was a little more easy, more
Yeah,
Caribbean.
very easy
Yeah.
going, very
Yeah, yeah.
Caribbean mentality, and in some ways I do think that is a good thing because it kind of keeps us grounded in a sense when it comes to work-life balance. um and then but at the same time it could be a deterrent for growth, right? And that's something I had to learn, and we've had to learn that about each other. I've learned that Chrissy needs to have her ability to focus in on work and just be like very on it without being disturbed. And I've even learned this about myself. I need the ability to step away from work and focus on other things. So I surround myself with plenty of things to keep myself busy, like plants and fish and terrariums, and that sparks my creativity. So in terms of the balance between the two, I think that because of how Chrissy is as a very highly ambitious New Yorker, and me as somewhat ambitious. I wouldn't say I'm highly ambitious, somewhat ambitious Caribbean man. I think it's a very good balance, and we learn from each other and we grow together. All right, so Danita, you remember we had a podcast about 2-3 years ago. Actually, it was my first initial podcast,
Yes, I do
right?
remember.
And that's how we came up with the term Danita Becker Dynamic Entrepreneur, right? And since then, you've really became a dynamic entrepreneur. I remember you started out with Lift Up, right? And that was an amazing concept. You ran with it for a bit, but now you've transitioned into a digital presence. Can you tell us a little bit about that and tell me why there was a transition, and tell me what you're doing now, and tell me why there was a transition.
Yeah, so first I have to address, so you calling me a dynamic entrepreneur, and I have to say, internally, I think there was a disconnect. Like I'd hear that, and to me, because my identity hadn't caught up to that, I didn't fully embrace it because I was like, is he actually talking about me, or is that for somebody else? I didn't feel like a dynamic entrepreneur, and I think it goes back to definitions of success. So like, well, I'm not a successful entrepreneur, so I'm not. It's hard for me to embrace feeling like declaring myself an entrepreneur. And actually, I will say it's only over the past year where I've confidently been calling myself an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to somebody who's just doing a thing, right, or
Mm-hmm.
trying a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I can now see that there's been this journey, and part of our journeys are not just about our output, but it's also about our identity, how we're feeling what we value. So I realized that for me, and I see it as a journey that God has been putting me on, is that this is part of my identity formation, is to push into entrepreneurship, something that has not always felt natural, or I haven't always felt confident in, and just help me build confidence and see my skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Lift Up, it was a local tourism business that I had created to show people a different side of Barbados, but beyond the beach. Um, Curated experiences that showed people the real Barbados. And I still actually love the concept, and I tested it and it actually did well. It just basically, I didn't want to, at some point, I realized I needed to put a lot of investment into marketing and into some, partnerships that would facilitate sales. And then at the time, I just didn't feel like that was the business I wanted to invest so heavily in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Though I don't consider Lift Up dead. I think it's just going to be, um, you know, like caterpillar and a butterfly, some kind of metaphor there. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
be a rebirth at some point. I do have some ideas for that.
Mm-hmm.
So then I did move into the digital space. It is actually more natural to me. I actually just started doing some websites on the side for people. I realized that, there actually is an appetite for this kind of business in Barbados. I actually didn't think so at first,
Mm-hmm.
because so many businesses here are referral oriented and experience based
Yeah.
and more traditional. So I thought, like, well, people don't actually need internet related things here, but I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I started growing a digital services business, targeting small business owners with digital services like websites, marketing automation, basically helping them establish or maintain their existing digital presence. I do have customers in the States as well as in Barbados, and they kind of have different needs
Mm-hmm.
at
Yeah.
this point. And I've actually started moving into capacity building, or just teaching people how to use AI
Mm-hmm.
effectively and practically.
Wonderful. And that is, when you were talking, right, and you were saying, people in the States have a very different need than the people in Barbados. I'm sure that has been very challenging to navigating those two lanes, because people in the States are very, very, very business oriented, right? Very, suit and tie, very, most of the time, most places, right? But in Barbados, a lot of business could be done over a rum punch at the beach,
Hmm.
right? How did you find the challenge between coming from the States and here? Like, has it been challenging, or do you find it's been very smooth? Has it been easier doing business here, or do you find it's easier doing business in the States?
Yeah, just so different. So in the States, their mentality is more like it's digital is default. Everybody knows that you need a digital presence, that you need to have digital processes, that automation is ideal. There's still gaps to be served in the States, but you don't have to sell people on the idea of digitization. They know they need it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them already have, like, let's say, websites that are just maybe they had an issue with their past web developer and there's something wrong with it, but they already had the website. They just need somebody to take them to the next level in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like they want to go from just sending an occasional email blast to like having an automated, segmented email journey for their customers. So they're already in the digital spaces. They usually just need like refinement and scale.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Caribbean, my experience has been then there's people who just don't necessarily feel like they need some of these things because again, their businesses may have run for decades
Mm-hmm.
just through word of mouth. So they didn't need to think about like email, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, but you know, COVID actually really shifted a lot of mentalities
Mm-hmm.
where people realized that, you know, during COVID, you had to kind of digitize to keep some level of business. And then post COVID, there's people who realize that in order to scale, they should engage digital because there's audiences they may be missing out on.
Mm-hmm.
I will say a lot of the differences between the States and the Caribbean is really cultural and really around how people are interacting. So in the States, you can so much focus is on just paying for eyeballs, you know, through advertising,
True.
like social media advertising, maybe TV if you have a lot of money, you know, paying to be in somebody's inbox, email, and just really trying to blast them at every like digital touch point. Whereas in the Caribbean, relationships do matter still, like even face to face, and just really taking people into consideration, which I really like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I've had to shift my mentality in it's actually a more effective investment for me to network in person as opposed to trying to send a bunch of people emails.
Mm-hmm.
And that it actually took me a while to get to that, realizing that the ROI on just like meeting people and face-to-face interaction is bigger in the Caribbean.
Sure.
But the thing is, it actually feeds me more as a person to
Yeah.
realize that developing relationships and connections with people, though it's good for business, it's also just good for the soul, honestly. So that's
very
where
true.
in the States, there can be a lack of genuine connection depending, or people don't want to take the time to actually learn about somebody else. So then, you know, there may be more opportunities for generating revenue in the States. But then that human connection can be lacking. So
True.
I would prefer to err on the side of human connection, even if, you know, we're not always as efficient at like making the money happen.
Awesome. And on that note, let's transfer back to the question you originally asked me, and that was about success, right? What is your idea of success? How do you see success?
Yeah, so I do see success as the ability to work and produce things I care about and what I want, and to be able to have flexible time for the things I care about and want to do. So, you know, I see somebody like Bill Gates as ultimately incredibly successful, not just because he's a billionaire, but because if you follow him on LinkedIn and so on, he's got his foundation, he's got all these pet projects. And for him, he's like, oh, I'm trying to eradicate poverty on this continent by whatever date. And then he's got these things he gets his hands into for like medical breakthroughs and all of that. But ultimately, his wealth has enabled him to work on the problems that he cares about and to build teams of people that could just work on what he cares about. So I think that's like ultimately like amazing success. It means that nobody is telling him what he has to do, which is also another form that freedom is a form of success. So that's what success means to me.
That's a great way of looking at success. I love that. And I know you're tired, so you can probably
I'm tired.
And that was the first podcast of